So a few days ago I did a video on all the experiments that I did this year that failed. That was a pretty painful video to do. This is a bit of a feel-good video for me, talking about all the experiments that I did that succeeded this year. So let's get started, and I'll pick things from the polytunnel first because I think those were some of the biggest successes. And for a lot of the details, look in the description of this video because I haven't got time to go through all the nitty-gritty details about timings and everything. But basically, early carrots did really well in the polytunnel. Those were sown in October, and we harvested those sort of April, early May. Calabrese, that did really well, and cauliflowers, those were sown in October, planted out in February, harvested in May. Courgettes, they were really good. I think they went in the polytunnel about April time, so we still had plenty of frosts over them, but they were protected with little bubble wrap tents. I'll talk about that later. So I was really pleased with those, got those about a month early, as were the beans. They were really good. The French beans and the runner beans, again protected in the polytunnel against the frost. They saw quite a few frosts actually, but we still harvested those in late May and early June. Potatoes started in the conservatory under this desk here, 2 containers every 2 weeks, and moved into the polytunnel once there was a good bit of green growth on them, something like that. And then fleeced at night, gave us a nice early crop in mid-April. So that was just the week after we harvested our last new potatoes, saved in compost in the original containers they grew in from last year. Strawberries, I just love early strawberries in the polytunnel. We plant second year runners into hanging baskets in, well, about probably early autumn or late summer. And they stay in those hanging baskets outside, get plenty of harsh weather until about February time, and then we bring them in, hang them up in the roof of the polytunnel, and they love it there. They don't seem to get affected by any frost because generally frost at that time of year is a ground frost, and they're 6 foot up in the air, so brilliant. And we get harvest off those in May. And what else is on my list? No, they're the main things I've been really pleased with. We've got lots more experiments to come for the polytunnel for next year though. So early baking potatoes. Now baking potatoes were always a challenge for us in general. We don't tend to be able to save them from the previous year much beyond sort of March, April time. And then we're not getting them again until September time. So it's a very long time to be without baking potatoes. We tried 2 things this year. One was growing Arran Pilot, sowed in April time, early April, and then harvested at the beginning of June. Started indoors, so they get a good head start, and then protected with fleece outside. And we got really nice bakers from those, although they only kept for a few weeks. And then at the beginning of July, we harvested Charlottes, basically done in a similar way. So started indoors at the beginning of April, and then in small pots, sort of 6-8 inch pots, and then planted out into a cold frame when they were about this tall, about the beginning of May, and then protected from the frosts in early May, and then they outgrew the cold frame in the middle of May sort of time, and then they just grew in the open air from the middle of May through June, and then we harvested at the beginning of July. So really good, very happy with those. I think there's more we could do to get baking potatoes even earlier, so I'm quite excited for those experiments coming soon. The back garden project. So we've traditionally grown almost everything on the allotment, but we decided this year we're going to grow a lot more stuff in the kitchen garden at home. We put in more raised beds. We increased the depth of the raised beds we had to improve the soil fertility. And we did more containers. We also did some stuff in the front garden. It's been an absolute resounding success. We've absolutely loved the way the garden looks. We've loved being surrounded by growing things. We've loved the fact it's changing all the time. We love the fact that kids that come round really enjoy going on like hunting food. We've grown loads of fruit and loads of veg. We've really focused on growing the sorts of things that need lots of attention, so frequent harvests or lots of watering, so salad crops, beans, things like that. Yeah, it's just been fantastic. We've really, really loved the back garden project. What we've also tried to do is most of our seedling growing at home as well. And so that means under grow lights, in the little polytunnel in the back garden, on the little grow bench out here in the conservatory, a mix of different environments for different types of seedlings. And one thing that didn't work very well initially was the grow lights in the garage, because they were on during the day. It was too hot during the day, so things were leggy. There was too much heat, not enough light. Well, there was probably enough light, but there was too much heat. So we swapped day and night, so that the grow lights were on at night when it was cooler, and that worked brilliantly. So that was first time we've tried that with swapping day and night, and it was really a resounding success. And just in general, the combination of those different growing environments has meant that consistently at any time of year, I've been able to get something from sowing to planting in between 3 months and 5 weeks. So quite a narrow time window, nice and consistent, and it fits my monthly sowing cycle really well. So in almost all situations, everything that I sow at the beginning of the month is planted by the end of the month. So I really like that. Just keeps everything clean, makes planning really simple and predictable. And the thing is, with using grow lights, it means I can do that every week of the year. It doesn't really matter. I don't have to think about, oh, it's January and therefore I need to assume that everything's going to take twice as long as it would if I was doing the same thing in May and all of that. I don't have to do any of that complexity. So I've really liked that. I really like simple systems that reduce the amount of thinking that I need to do. So I've also kind of really got my system for spinach growing down now. We like to grow spinach all year round. And one of the challenges that we've had in previous years is how do we grow spinach in midwinter? So spinach normally just stalls about middle of December, early December, middle of December. Doesn't really start until February, middle of February time. And even then, you know, harvest rates are really quite low. And so now what we do is we grow field beans. So we plant those in October. They're harvest ready, so about 6 inches tall. We pinch out the tips. Harvest ready in December, and we harvest them all the way through, because they keep on growing, do field beans all the way through winter. Harvest them all the way through December and January and February and March. Cut the tops off, leave the roots in the ground in April, leave them for about a month, and then plant the brassicas or whatever the follow-on crop is. So we're really happy with those. They've really made a big difference. So the next thing is, what do we do in summer? So traditionally we've grown New Zealand spinach in summer because true spinach just bolts so quickly. And I like New Zealand spinach. It freezes really well, it's tasty, we have it in salads and cooked, but it takes a long time to pick. And it certainly drops a lot of seed. So basically, if you grow New Zealand spinach somewhere, you're going to be growing it there for the next 2 or 3 years, whether you like it or not. So this year we grew the Mikado, which is an Asian spinach, and it doesn't bolt as fast. And even when it does bolt, it really is still a very usable plant, giving a good yield for probably about a month after it started going to seed. And that is very different to true spinach. So yeah, we really like Mikado, and apparently you can grow Mikado from sort of March through to autumn. So I think that that's going to be one of our go-to spinaches. Debbie says it's the best tasting spinach that she's ever had. So we've even got some, and we're trying to grow it in the polytunnel over winter. So we'll see how that goes. Carrots in the ground. So we've traditionally grown a lot of our carrots in containers, but this year we tried to grow them in the ground. And some of them got carrot fly. That was in the disaster story. But the ones that didn't have been fantastic. Really lovely carrots, really nice and long and clean, and just so easy to grow, and obviously not using up container space. No need to water them or anything like that. Really, really happy. So we're going to do much more work on growing carrots in the ground, which is it's not really much of an experiment, is it, that? But it is for us, and it's been really great. And our favourite carrot, I think, is going to be Touchon. You can plant that in May, and you can still be harvesting that in February from the same sowing. It's such a good carrot. So I talked a bit when I was talking about the polytunnel crops about bubble wrap tents. We've used these bubble wrap tents so much. They've been so great. So basically all we do is we just get a piece of bubble wrap, we wrap it round some canes, and we put a bit of string around it, and that is a little tent. We put a little clip at the top as well to hold it together, so there's not so much air loss through the venting at the top. We've used it in the polytunnel, of course, but we've also used it wrapped around beans outside. We've used it wrapped around the tumbler tomatoes grown in containers outside, and it's just been so great. I've not done any hardening off or anything like that. Just pop the plants out straight from the conservatory, straight into pots in the ground, wrap them up in the tent, leave them for about 4 weeks, and then the nice big stocky plants, when the bubble wrap comes off, and just pick a nice couple of days and they're done. So we had some bad experiences with sweetcorn pollination this year, even though we grew them in blocks. But what did work for us really nicely was the two sisters method. I don't like the three sisters method, but I do like the two sisters. So a squash bed interplanted with sweetcorn. And when you do it like that, of course, you've got sweetcorn, squash plant, sweetcorn. And so you've got a lot of distance between the sweetcorn plants. To make that work, really what we do is we do 5 sweetcorn plants in a little clump. So 2, 4, 5. And then we put, obviously, them, on the other side of the on the other side of the squash. So there's, I don't know, 1.5 meters or something between them, and that's really great for pollination, because if there's no wind, the clump of 5 self-pollinates itself. If there is wind, one clump's pollen gets blown to the next clump, and so it really works well in both still and windy conditions. And it's just like a free crop, it's just interplanted into the squash bed. It doesn't seem to affect the yield of the squash at all. The squash seems to improve the yield of the sweet corn. It's worked really nicely. So the next one, it's the last one, is green garlic as a late season leek. So we run out of leeks about sort of March time, something like that. And at that time, garlic that we've planted in October, November time, is just starting to get to be a usable size. And so we massively overplant our garlic, so we've got loads and loads spare. We thin out alternate plants, or we sometimes just plant dedicated green garlic beds. And we just take that immature garlic and we use the whole of the stem, chopped up a bit like you would a spring onion or something like that, or a leek, of course. And it just tastes like a sweet leek. It's really lovely. And obviously you can still use the bulb as if it were a big clove. But what we also do is we plant in February, March and April and May more garlic. So what we're doing generally is just planting the stored garlic that's starting to sprout. So as a few of them start to sprout, we just take those, plant them, and that's more of our successions of green garlic. So I think that is it. Those are the successful experiments, so things that we've never done before, that we tried this year, that have worked really well for us, or that we've just become confident really that the system works from having experimented for a couple of years. And I think all gardeners like to experiment a bit, but we really do like it, and I've got lots more to come this year, so that will be the subject of another video. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.